In this fast-paced society where everyone wants everything now, it's a really hard gig to try and form that balance. This particular horse, she absolutely loved everyone. She was adorable, sweetest thing on earth, but absolutely hated me.
Our guest today on Horse Chats is Lee Davis. Now, Lee's another equitana educator, and he's the owner-trainer at LD Horsemanship, where they offer equine services, including horse training from foal handling through to riding tuition, everything else in between. The other thing is that Lee's offers equine-assisted skills development, so EASD. He's only just got qualified about that, but I'm going to ask him a bit more about it, how he got qualified and what the EASD involves. But before I do that, I'd just like to remind people or let people know that if they want to work in the horse industry but not sure where to start, then have a chat to our friendly team at internationalhorsecollege.com with the wide variety of horse courses from the complete beginner to qualified professional, and with students in over 20 countries, we'll be able to consider your individual requirements and guide you in the right direction. Simply go to internationalhorsecollege.com now to start the conversation. Registered Training Organisation 31352. You don't actually have to do it right now. You can listen to this chat first and do it after the chat. But anyway, Lee, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, Glenys, and thanks so much for inviting me on the podcast. It's a real honour.
Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, we just like to hear about everyone. This is a bit of preparation for Equitana, as I said. So we're talking to a few different educators. And I think if people aren't going to Equitana, still knowledge anyway. So, stay listening.
Yeah, hopefully I've got a good story to tell.
Yeah. I think, Lee, just saying about you, you're passionate about helping people understand the power of horses in terms of personal development. And I think one of your sayings, as well as the one we're going to talk about in a minute, is you can't be a good horse person or a horseman if you're not a good human. So we'll talk about that as well. But before we get started, and this is for everyone else, just I like to say, what inspires you? If you've got a good quote, something you say to yourself, something you say to your students, just that keeps you going through the day, what have you got for us?
Well, one of my favourite ones, Glenys, is we've all heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, I extrapolate on that, and I saw it somewhere. I can't quote whoever wrote it, but you can lead a human to knowledge, but you can't make him think.
Yeah.
It's a real tough one, and I find it, in terms of, I find I'll teach somebody something, and I think it's the greatest thing on earth, and it can be something as simple as tying a latigo properly on your Western saddle, or, just the way you actually swing the saddle up onto the horse. And they think it's great. And then you'll come back and see them a few weeks, months later, and they're tripping over their latigo again while they're dragging it to the horse. And you go, well, if you found it that really helpful, why didn't you why hasn't it sunk in? And I was only listening today to the podcast from Andrew McLean that he did with him just recently. And like he said, some people, especially adults, they get really set in their ways, and it's hard to break that, not only muscle memory, but brain memory, like rewire those neural pathways to accept that new information, because we've been doing it so long, it's hardwired, basically. So, yeah, it's just one of those things, and it's a tough one, but I always come back to it and go, well, when I'm struggling with trying to help somebody and it's just not sinking in, well, yep, you can lead a human to knowledge, but you can't make them think.
I think you can give people opportunities, and whether or not they take advantage of them.
Spot on.
Yeah. I also think that sometimes people aren't ready to take advantage. So you can be teaching people something and they hear it, all of a sudden they might listen to a lesson, and you might say it's slightly different to someone else, but it's still the same thing. And they say, oh, why? Why haven't you never taught me that,
Yeah.
And you think, well, I have, but, maybe I just did it a slightly different way. Or maybe you just had a bit more experience now and you're ready to hear it.
Yeah, that's true. It's, as the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And, I've got a couple of good favourite books that I read here, and I'll keep reading them. And each time I do read them, especially like one from Tom Dorrance, True Unity, the more you get along in your journey, the more you understand the words he's putting down on that paper, which was written years ago. But, just the more you understand, the more you accept the knowledge, as you say.
So I know at Equitana you're teaching take the rein out of the rein back. But before we start that, you're a bit of a late starter to horses. So do you want to just give us a bit of an overview about why you didn't start with horses early, and then as a late starter, and you're not the only late starter who's been on the show either, but, as a late starter, why was it horses that got you started?
Well, it was more my wife that got me started, or she reignited her passion for horses. She had horses as a young girl, and the opportunity came along once we moved back to Tassie from the mainland for her to buy another horse. She wanted to get back into it, and I was totally agreeable. We always been that way inclined, and I said, yeah, as long as it doesn't get in the way of my fishing, sweetheart, that'll be fine. And anyway, so my wife, I'm not sure if I put it down in the notes there, but we've been breeding Friesians for the last 20 odd years, and of course she had to buy a Friesian. But this little filly she bought, it was just the weirdest thing. I'm normally pretty good with animals, and this particular horse, she absolutely loved everyone. She was adorable, sweetest thing on earth, but absolutely hated me. I've never seen anything like it in the 20 odd years I've been involved with horses now. She would literally start backing up to the fence and double barreling the air, saying, "Don't you dare come near me." So, being with the lack of knowledge that we had way back then, we tried all sorts of things about, backing on the bum with polypipe and all sorts of things. And in my frustration, I said to Nadine, "That horse is going to, hurt somebody, really badly. And if not me, somebody else." Because she did everything. She kicked me, she bit me, she ran over me. It wasn't fun. So, in my wife's frustration, she gave me Monty Roberts' book at the time, The Man Who Listens to Horses. And I wasn't much of a reader, but for whatever reason, this book captivated my attention. And throughout the book, I sort of worked out how to do the join-up method. I snuck up to the paddock on this particular day and thought, right, I'm going to give this a crack. And, of course, you're supposed to do it in a round yard. I had a 3-acre paddock. 40 minutes later, the horse is in a lather of sweat. I'm in a lather of sweat. But she's got a nose on my shoulder. I get emotional every time I talk about this. She's got a nose on my shoulder saying, "I want to be your best friend." So that was it. My boat sat in the shed for about 6 months and didn't hit the water, and my wife couldn't work out why. I was just immersed. I could not get enough knowledge to work out how to get a better relationship and improve it. I wasn't interested in going down the traditional horsemanship methods. Being a bloke, everyone gravitates to rodeo and drafting and things like that. But that there set the scene for me to work on the psychology part of it. And then, it was just the rest is history. I got pretty involved with it.
Tell me then, what happened to your boat?
I sold it and bought a horsefly. Yeah, my wife just dropped dead. She just sank to the floor because I worked pretty hard to get that boat, a lot of overtime hours and everything. It was my pride and joy. But she just couldn't believe it. I said, "Well, babe, it's sat in a shed for 7 months and I've been playing with these ponies and all the rest of it." I said, "Why wouldn't we?" And she was just so grateful. It was a nice little moment. Yeah.
And that was 25 years ago, you said?
Yeah, that's about 25 years ago now. The journey started. And once the thirst for the knowledge came, well, of course, I needed my own horse and went off and didn't tell my wife. I was just thought, well, I'm going to go and get myself off. And back then I was pretty frugal about money and things. And you could buy a pretty good horse, or a reasonable horse, for $500. And I saw this one advertised. It was a Whaler Cross. I thought, well, I'm an Aussie bloke. What better way to get into horses than with an Aussie horse? And so I went up. I didn't even test ride this horse. I'd done a little bit of, mucking around with the Pirelli system and things. So I thought I knew it all. Chock full of young man syndrome and all the rest of it. And picked up this horse who, she'd had a pretty bad start in life, and she taught me heaps. I'm not a quitter. So I decided to stick with all the bad habits and everything that she had, everything just evolved from there. Like, she was a great teacher to start with. All the horses I had come through my hands have been great teachers, I must say. And what really kept me going with it, Glenys, is, as you said at the start there, you've got to be a good human in order to be a good horseman. And what I realised was the personal development that was coming through as a result of wanting to be better with horses and understanding them better. I was becoming a better person. So, it was a really good double-edged sword in that respect.
So you won the 2022 Manton Snowy River Festival Trainers Challenge. Is that the first time you'd gone in, or you've done it before? Tell us a bit about that.
No, Glenys, I watched in awe. I was a really big fan of Road to the Horse, which is the big American colt starting competition. I watched that religiously every year, and always went when I was at Equitana to the Way of the Horse and watch those and going, geez, this is awesome. And funnily enough, with my first horse, Lil, I was working with a mentor at the time, Philip Nye, who was a very good Pirelli instructor, and he's now out on his own. He was asking me one day, well, where do you want to take this, Lee? Where do you want to go with it all? And just for whatever it popped into my head, I said, well, old Lil here, my first horse, she had a pretty rough start in life. I reckon I'd like to have a go at colt starting because, I reckon I could offer a horse a bit better deal. And, of course, like I say, I watched all those ensuing competitions, thought, geez, I'd like to have a crack at that one day. I think that'd be really, really good fun. But at the time, I was still it was just sort of a sideline for me. I had a full-time job. It wasn't really super serious. I was just starting a few horses on the side, but I was finding myself, I had, 6 or 8 horses every year without even advertising. The word got out and people were really liking the end result that they got back. So I have a big handover session. I really pride myself on making sure the horse is trail ready. It's not just been arena and round yard trained and then ring them up, I come and pick him up. There's 3 rides under my instruction, and the 3rd ride I call my graduation ride, which is a 10-kilometre trail ride with the owner riding it. And if there's any issues, when we come back home, I'll keep the horse free of charge and deal with those issues. But I'm not up to set students up for failure, so I'll make sure that they're going to graduate by the time they get on that trail ride. So, and I had the opportunity, a guy I did my Horse Safety Australia course with was the organiser of the Trainers Challenge, and he said, you should throw your hat in the ring, Lee. You never know what I said, oh, mate, I'll be up against all those professionals. What hope have I got? He said, just try it out, mate. You never know. I'm on the committee, but, I'm only one of a few. And lo and behold, I put my application in and was accepted, and that was a tremendous experience. I absolutely loved it. It was a great time. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd win.
That's great.
And people often said to me, you're going up there to win? I said, yeah, I am going up to win. I'm going up to win the horse's heart. I'm not up there to win anything else. If I can send that horse home in a better state of mind so it can continue on its career, I said, I've won. I'm a real winner. And I'll walk out of the ring a winner and shake the hand of the person that did win. So, no, it was a great experience.
Now, your equine assisted skills development. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, as you say, I've only just gained the qualification and I'm about to head to my first little sort of follow-up networking training day, but I've sort of been looking at a lot of the equine-assisted learning modalities that are out there, and the lady that facilitated EASD, which is the equine-assisted skills development, she's been involved in equine-assisted learning in some form for the last 15 years, so she's been sort of in on the ground level. I mean, it's been around for a long time. She herself has tried a lot of different modalities and realised a lot of it was helping people deal with their emotions and things like that. But it was also she saw a lack of development. So sure they were helping deal with emotions and things like that, but it wasn't really helping them develop their skills as a human and interaction with people, especially those that are that don't have those skills. So a good friend of mine, she convinced me to go along to the 4-day course, and it's been one of the best 4 days of my life. I cannot wait to get involved with it all, because not only a lot of the equine assisted learning deals with people with learning disabilities, mental issues, all that sort of thing, but this particular modality, I can take it to corporate and help with team building. I can take it to schools and help with rambunctious kid development, if you like, and things like that. So that really, I wasn't aware of that when I got into it, but just after the first day, I thought, Jingoes, I'm hooked. Like just reading through the manual and things. So I really, really am looking forward to adding that as a nice little arm to my business. And I will be targeting the corporate side of things because my previous life as a maintenance team leader, I did lots of team building activities and stuff like that. But there was nothing like this. And some of the stuff, not only is it very challenging, both mentally and both mentally, but it helps accumulate or culminate in team building and working as a team. Some of the exercises we did, just involved communication. One was we had 3 blocks, 2 planks, and we weren't allowed to touch the sand. The only things that were allowed to touch the sand were the hooves of the horses. And there were 5 of us. So, and we had to go from one end of the arena to the other in 45 minutes. So, it was just a really, really good exercise. I could just see where you could extrapolate that into a lot of learning for, like I say, not only just people with difficulties with life, but also just managers and workers just being able to communicate on a better level. And horses just help that journey for sure. So looking forward to really delving into that come the new year.
Yeah. At Equitana, taking the rein out of the rein back. And I know you've got 2 sessions on this. Tell us a bit about what you're going to be doing in those sessions. People, it's a bit of an introduction. You don't need to go through the full thing, but tell us what you're going to do. So people are listening, they'll say, that's one session. They'll highlight it in their calendar and tick it off and say, right, I want to do that one.
Yeah. Well, as I say, my foundation with the Pirelli system sort of really helped hone my thought process around how to really interact with horses from a psychological level. One of Pat's favourite sayings was, the more you use your reins, the less your horse will use his brains. So, the whole message of what I'm going to be putting across with my demonstrations, sure, it revolves around asking your horse to back up more from your seat than from the reins. But it also, the way I'm going to put it across, you can extrapolate that to any part of your horse training. It's about breaking things down into small, tiny pieces and then adding them all back together and then creating the finished product. As Tom Dorrance would say, separate, isolate, and recombine. It's just a really, really good way of putting that whole ethos across of don't just try and shove it down the throat with a shovel, just pepper it in piece by piece. So, and a couple of the first few things when I meet a new client and they want to do some lessons is one of these things is I use this 9 steps to a backup just to help them understand it's not about your reins, it's about what everything else comes before the reins. And you can take that anywhere. It doesn't matter what you're doing with your riding. But, quite often, obviously, if the horse is really not getting it, we need to make that contact and say, well, hey, this is really what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, you need to keep all those other things in place and then use the rein and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to say. And then just try and back off, ease off on that. And then, in terms of building things, I like to explain things from a perspective of, I like to take my horsemanship in the view of building a jigsaw puzzle as opposed to today's fast-paced society and wanting more and more of a photo approach. So with photos, there's been more photos taken in one day than in the first 50 years of photography. So what commonly happens is, a trainer will get the basics and in a well-meaning fashion, because they know that the client's paying them money, they want to help them progress. So yes, they get the basics and then they move on and take another photo. They've photoshopped out the real important parts, and that is forming a basis of that exercise. So it's second nature. It's not just something that they've done a couple of times and then away we go and we do another thing, and then they take another photo and Photoshop out that bit and take another photo and Photoshop. And then by the time they get to the 20th photo and it's a high-level manoeuvre, they realise that photo number 5, that little bit they Photoshopped out, oh, geez, that's really important. That's why we're not getting this movement. That was missed. So that sort of happens quite often. And like I say, trainers are well-meaning, but, they really need to make sure that rather than just having the basics, they need to form a basis. Now, when you look at a jigsaw puzzle approach to your training, the first thing we do with a jigsaw puzzle is we form the edges. That's what we find, all the straight bits. And that's my job as a colt starter, to form that framework for the horse to learn. I'm not a horse trainer in that aspect. I just teach the horse to learn. I'm a kindergarten teacher, setting that horse up. Then the next thing we do with the jigsaw puzzle is we form, we get all the colours and we separate them. So we've got the sky's blue and the buildings are grey and the grass is green and things like that. But they're still pieces. So, we've got those little lumps. So let's say the blue is your flying lead change, and the grey, well, that's your backup, and the other one is let's say the green is your half pass. They're still pieces. We have to put them together piece by piece. But once they're there, it's solid. You can't Photoshop a jigsaw puzzle, and it doesn't go together if you don't put the pieces in the right place. But the problem with that, Glenys, is it takes time. Like I say, in this fast-paced society where everyone wants everything now, it's a really hard gig to try and form that balance between this is what we need to do, but you need to make sure your horse understands it intrinsically, not just the basics of it. So, so that's that sort of the underlying message of what I'll be putting across it. It's in my demonstration.
Yep, and there's just so much in there,
Oh, for sure. You bet.
It's not just about reinback, it's about horsemanship, isn't it?
Exactly. But I just use that, some people need to see something. Luckily for me, people say to me, "Oh, are you taking Squizzy over?" Which is my good mate, Quarter Horse. He's a legend, but I've only got to start thinking about backup, and he's backing up. So nobody's not going to get much out of that. So I've been very lucky in the fact that my wife been involved with Frisians. One of the ladies from the breed display who's going to have a Frisian there is kindly loaned it to me for the 2 days for my demonstration. So the horse won't know me for a start, nor will it know this technique of backing up. So, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good couple of days.
Lee, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the session. I'm sure that people are listening to you and they go, "Wow, this really resonates with me." Make sure that you go to both sessions. Go to one session.
Yeah, look, I can guarantee it's that they're the same session, but there'll be some different words on different days. It's just how it rolls,
Definitely, that's just horses, isn't it?
Yes, for
sure.
You
don't ever have the same day twice. It's always
exactly.
You've got the same horse, same time, same arena, same weather, everything else. It's always going to be different.
Absolutely,
yeah.
For sure.
All right, Lee. Well, thanks for coming on. We've enjoyed chatting to. Well, I've enjoyed chatting to you, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed listening to you. And thank you for the time. And we'll see you at Equitana.
No worries, guys. I really appreciate and I'm very grateful to you for having me on. This is my very first podcast. I listened to quite a few, and
we'll have to get you back on again, then, Lee.
I'd love to come back.
Yeah.
Once you start get me wound up about my passion, that's the way I go. Just warm me up and let me go.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Lee. We'll
no worries.
again soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.